The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello, friends, and thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week, we are going to help you get to know Austin FC's Leagues Cup opponents better. We're going to cover the away loss in Colorado, and we'll cover some other Austin FC and some big MLS news as well. My name's Landon and Jeremiah, and I'm joined once again by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jeremiah Bentley, and I have made my way to the beach and home, and to Albuquerque and home, and now to Lubbock. So still not quite at home, but I'm happy to be sitting here in the Overton Hotel doing this show with you on a Monday night, man. I've kind of missed it.
Lubbock is maybe the opposite of the beach.
Yes, quite possibly. Where's the nearest large body of water to where I am right now?
Oh, there you could get to some lakes and stuff. You can probably be in a lake in 45 minutes or an hour. But the beach is like, I don't know, Galveston or something like that.
Right.
12 hours.
Right. Well, so I spent a week at the beach in Florida, and it was a really good trip to Destin. We did have two double red days because of Tropical Storm Bertha, which oddly in the 10 years we've been going is the first time we've gotten a tropical storm, which seems like we've just been really, really fortunate for that trip. But you were also at a beach somewhere. So tell us more about where you were recently.
I was not on the beach. I was at over 6,000 feet elevation in the mountains. Yeah, I was in San Luis Potosí. We got into it a little bit, me and Mike, on I guess the show 2 weeks ago.
Right.
But I'll give a quick update on our trip to San Luis. It was a nice trip. It was interesting. As we had been there for a few days and started to get the feel for the city, it's like, okay, it's not a lot going on, not a super busy city. It is all locals, no tourists come here, which is very cool. The downtown was for locals. How many downtowns here or in other parts of the world can you think of where you go downtown and there's not a tourist shop? It's businesses that the locals are going to. That was very cool. And I think it's a charming part of the city. But it was also maybe a little bit dull. And so we were trying to come up with the American equivalent of it. And we found a Reddit post that helped us out with that.
Oh,
and
really?
This Reddit post, I think it was someone who had spent time in the States but was from San Luis, described San Luis Potosí as the Indianapolis of Mexico, where it's it's a great place to raise a family. There's work there. People have started moving in for jobs. They're just now kind of starting to get international people moving in for work and for industry type stuff. And so the city's slowly changing, but also you're probably not going to go there on vacation. And
you did.
We did. Yeah. And it was, as we were there, everyone was very lovely, but we would notice, we're obvious, my Spanish is pretty good, but it's not good enough to be mistaken for a local. And then just the way we look also, we're not going to be mistaken for locals there. And so people just kind of would give us this look occasionally of what are you doing here? And it wasn't anger. They weren't mad at us for being here. They were confused at why we were there.
Is this on purpose that you ended up here, or was it an accident? Was there a time travel thing going on we don't know about? But
yeah, the idea was to try to go somewhere with elevation so it would be a little bit cooler than Austin. It was cooler, but we had some skill issues on our Airbnb booking where it did not have AC, and so it ended up being really hot in the place we were staying to. So glad to have seen San Luis Potosí. We might try somewhere else next time we go to Mexico, including one of the places we're going to highlight in the Leagues Cup preview.
Oh, I'm so excited. Spotlighting future content on the podcast. All right, let's go to the news of the week. I think we've just had the one game. So I think the one thing that came to mind for me is Mike and I did a lot of hate last week on double inverted wingers. And I feel like I want to know if you hated it as much as we did. And of course, because you're a man that never speaks in absolutes, I think there's going to be some nuance between does this system potentially work And can these guys make it work, or do these guys make it work? But like, let's just open the floor to that. Like, what have you felt about what you've seen from this team in the last 3 matches?
You hit the nail on the head with what my take was going to be. That short answer is no, I don't like it. But of course, there's several caveats and nuances I want to include here, which is like formation does not equal system or does not equal like a tactical plan. And so I think like this formation could work. And we've talked about like using a back five for this set of players and trying to figure out a way to make that work. So I don't mind that part of it. I like, and then the way Davies talked about it is saying like, we're kind of dedicated to figuring this out. We're going to get better each week. We can talk about later if we think that's actually happening or not, but I can appreciate that part of it, of saying, hey, we're going to do this thing consistently so that we can get better at it. We can improve week over week. The part I have the problem with is, I think the same thing a lot of people do is like using certain players in certain ways that does not suit them, does not work. And there's not really much evidence to believe that it ever will work. Like, if it's like, okay, they're not comfortable with it right now, but give them a few games and they'll get there. I don't think, like, we've had quite enough time to see Joseph Rosales playing on the right, because Estevez was doing it as well. We've seen John Gallagher do okay on the left, but not in this role that he's playing. Like, I always say, John Gallagher is a hammer, not a scalpel. He's trying to use him as a scalpel at times in this system, and it's not really working, especially if like you're trying to get him to cut in on his right foot. That is more of that is a skill set. It's a specific skill set. You can't just let anybody do it. And so Moises asked him in the post-game press conference about it, and like Davy kind of like explained the concept of inverted wingers, and I think Moises did a really good job of not acting too offended, and he was like, right. I'm aware of the concept, but
I know what it is. Yes.
And so I think it's like, I've seen discussions online of like, what does Davy think he's doing? Like, is he trying to be super creative? Is he trying to do something weird to get attention? Like, what does he think he's doing? And so I think Brendan Hines-Ike had some interesting comments about the system. And then at the very end of that press conference, if you watched it or didn't watch it, Brendan Hines-Ike is asked, like, is Curtin's thumb on the scale here? Like, are they in conversation? Is this moving towards something Curtin wants to do? And Hines-Ike essentially said, I'm not really sure what the plan is. Like, I don't know what communication is going on, but whenever I played against Curtin teams, this is not what they were doing. And so I think that's an interesting conversation to have, of like, we all kind of hoped that we would be moving that direction, right? That it would be kind of slowly implementing this Curtin system. That's not what's happening. Why do you think that is the reason? Like, why?
Or like a Curtin system? Because, I mean, I think the other thing, I think Moises brought this up too, like, maybe he wants to play a different way now with a different set of players, right? It's like, we don't necessarily know that. I feel like I've read somewhere, and I think this is maybe speculation, but not true, or maybe could be true. It's like, one thing is that it seems like the club has less access to Jim Curtin than we probably thought they might, where he's not on the phone, like in Davy's ear, all the time talking about what he's going to do. Because I think that was part of the Philadelphia Union deal. Is like, you really can't significantly engage in Austin before. So I think there's that part to it.
And like formally cannot.
Sure.
Which, given how this league is run and it's just like day-to-day operations, I can't imagine there being any like real checks or balances to that.
So what if we're the one team? What if we're the one the group that respects the rules, Landon? Like, then that's on us, right?
Yeah, like like given the like the DP system is essentially like an honor system, and Miami was just like, the checks and balances was, trust me, bro. Oh, actually, we have 5 DPs. Don't tell anybody.
That is very fair. So I think one thing that some part of the fan base, and I feel a little bit about this, is true also, that might have some trauma with those post-game comments from Davy, is when he said, oh, we're not going to react to what other teams are doing. We just have like a strategy. We're going to play every game in the same way. And I feel like for some folks, it feels very Josh Wolfy, which I think people probably don't want to hear again. Because say whatever you want about Nico Estevez, but he seemed to, at least in his words, want to be flexible with the players and the game plan and who they were playing against and try some different things. And this is very much different from what we're hearing from Davy over the last couple weeks, and it seems like his commitment going forward.
Yeah, I understand. Like, I totally understand that reaction, like the Josh Wolf PTSD. I don't know if it's necessarily entirely the same motivation. Like, I think I was saying before, like, I can appreciate sticking to a thing, like a new thing, especially to try to help these players get familiar with it, get comfortable with it. But yeah, at the same time, it is hard as a fan to hear like this thing that looked terrible and didn't work. We're doing it again next week.
Yeah. And maybe Jim Curtin is bought into it or maybe not. I mean, because it seems like the worst possible outcome, just like imagining things with no information, is like Nico played a way or a set of ways, and then Davy's going to play our way of set of ways, and then half a season later, Jim Curtin's going to come in. He's going to play like a different set of ways, and like, why are we making these guys relearn these concepts over and over and over again?
I think
what
part
do you
of
think
it
about that?
could be just that either Davy on his own or Davy and Jim Curtin looked at this roster and said, and I would agree with what I'm about to postulate that they are saying, is that this roster cannot play the way those Jim Curtin teams played. Like there's a few reasons, but I think one of the main ones is you need a monster ground covering number 6 to play. If it's going to be that 4-4-2 diamond, you need a number 6 who can cover a ton of ground, who can win the ball. We do not have that player on the roster. So that alone necessitates at least a minor shift. But I think there's a few other places where you could say, okay, this doesn't quite fit. This doesn't quite fit. This doesn't quite fit. So instead of trying to shoehorn this thing that we're doing, let's do like a half step towards that. Do something that makes sense with these players. And that way, when Curtin is here, they're a little bit closer. I'm not necessarily defending it or condoning it, but I could see that being the reality.
I can follow that. And I guess one more question before we get off this segment and go to the first break. Because there's Jim Curtin, who's going to be the coach. Oh, there's going to be a sporting director. But then there's this guy from Philadelphia that we hired is like the director of analytics or whatever. And you told us on the side that you wanted to talk about him before when we hired Curtin. I just want to say, if you want to take a victory lap on like wanting this guy on the team with no recorded evidence of this happening, like feel free to dive in and jump on that.
Yeah, I don't think I can take a full victory lap because I didn't actually document it anywhere. And I do have like a notes app thing on my phone where I was digging through like old Jim Curtin staffs and like who worked for him, who was on in his thing. And whenever he was fired, this guy, do you have his name pulled up? I can't remember his name. Okay, yeah, here's the name, Dean Costalis. And so I don't believe we've seen an announcement from Austin FC on this. It is on the website now. And I think that's how, I'm not sure who found it first, but I saw Verity Nation and We Are Austin TV posting about it. So it is on the website official now, but Dean Costalis was hired or is now on the website and on LinkedIn as the club's new senior vice president of soccer strategy. So whenever I was digging into these Jim Curtin staffs, I noticed that when he was fired, this guy left the union and then was digging back through some articles and some like Reddit stuff and things like that. And Dean Costalis was a Jim Curtin guy. Like Curtin brought him in. He was the head of Curtin's data strategy, essentially. And so I just read that and I was like, okay, Curtin's talking about how much he's going to use data in the way he chooses players, the way he chooses who to put on the field. It would be really cool if we could bring in his guy from Philadelphia. And I wrote that in a notes app, forgot about it, forgot to say it on the show. And now it sounds like I'm just trying to get credit for something after the fact, but I swear I had it written down.
Well, okay, so like what makes you excited about him as a guy that comes in?
Just that it's a thing that Philly seemed to do really well, a thing that that is important to Curtin, and that it's like another way of him bringing like his success in Philadelphia to Austin, that he doesn't have to recreate it with different ingredients. He can do it with the same ingredients to some degree. And like he knows this guy, trusts this guy, likes this guy, and knows how to work with them, how to be successful with them. And he can just plug and play, at least in that department here in Austin.
And it's a department that I don't think has existed here in Austin, at least not in this specific way.
I don't think they had a super robust data department under Claudio Reyna. And then things I'd heard about Rodolfo Borrell, he was very old school in that way and used data very sparingly, if at all. And so I think this will be a big shift in that direction that Austin FC has never really done.
And probably one that we're both excited about. Well, I know you're excited about it, so I'll just say like it's also one that I'm excited about. Well, let's go from here. Let's take a break. We'll talk about the Colorado away match for a bit, and then get into some Austin FC news and the preview of the Leagues Cup matches.
All right, hang tight. We'll be right back.
When no one is around.
Moontower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. And they have their own podcast called Summary Judgment that you can check out wherever you get your podcasts.
You can go to FEF.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FEF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balance. That means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and to register for free parking at the Esperanza branch on game day, visit goamplify.com/moontower. All right, we are back. A bit later in the show, we are going to introduce you to our Liga MX opponents coming up for Leagues Cup, which is going to be the next 3 games for Austin FC. But first, I feel like we have to, at least for a brief moment, cover this game in Colorado. There was not a lot of soccer happened in that game from an Austin FC perspective, so there's not a lot to cover. But I think there are some takeaways, some learnings, some frustrations that we can at least voice here for a moment.
Yeah, so this leaves Austin. Okay, so here's the one thing that was kind of funny. Like, I know I was writing the outline right before we started this show. I think you were in there too, right when I was loading it up. And I originally wrote this as Austin loses away to Houston because it felt like a repeat in some way, although less dramatic, of what happened in Houston. Although Austin was in it up until the very end. So I would say that's a positive out of it. So let's talk about what we were thinking about going into this one. So the question is, like, would we see more of the same? I don't think we had gotten, and I could be wrong on my timing, I don't think we got the quotes from Davy that, like, yeah, this is the system we're going to play all the time. So maybe we see something different. And then we also get this question about health, because now John Bell and Mikel Dessler have been out for a while. So, like, are they anywhere near coming back? And the answer to that seems to be no, because they continue to be out. And I think for the Leagues Cup, they were on the initial 35, but probably we will expect them to also be injury replaced.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the Leagues Cup roster and how we expect it to change in the next few days, because I assume it will. But yeah, I wanted to go back to the Freudian slip of comparing it to Houston, because both games are very frustrating, I think, in different ways, because the Houston game, we did quite a bit well, especially in the first little stretch of that game. And it was large failings in very critical moments that led to us giving up those goals, namely us having a super high line, Houston running behind that line, and then Austin FC's front 5 in the press not putting any pressure on the ball. And so they're just freely playing balls over our back line, which is not the fastest group in the world, especially the center backs, and then asking them to chase them down while they're just like playing dimes over the top to these pretty fast players on their attacking line. So But the attacking stuff, we were getting into Houston's half at the beginning of that game. This Colorado game, we never did that. And it seemed like there wasn't a single thing that was working in this Colorado game. We were able to hold them to not scoring, luckily. And so maybe like made some adjustments in that way, or just like, I don't think Colorado's really trying to play that same way that Houston was either, but it's like no highlights and no positives in this Colorado game versus some highlights and some lowlights in the Houston
Some
game.
both, right? Yeah. Houston was definitely more of an up and down extreme game. This is Colorado. The one stat that blows my mind on this one is the touches in the opposition box, which is still one of the funniest names for a stat because I'm a 12-year-old boy perennially. But it was 50-8 for Colorado. And I remember maybe late in the first half when we got like our first touch in the 18 in the Colorado end. It's like, oh, there's something worth celebrating with the way Austin's playing on the night. So, yeah, definitely slow. Did you watch this one on TV? Or like, I'm sure you did, either like live or going back. But, the announcers had a lot of talk about the heat and a lot of talk about the altitude. I feel like the heat is a thing Austin should be able to figure out. Yeah. And I don't know if this is a thing we can blame on the heat or altitude just from watching them play. Maybe. But I'm not sure I'm completely bought into that being the main reason why Austin was so listless on the night.
It could have had an effect, but I can and will name several other reasons why they looked bad.
Okay, let's do it.
So it was a similar shape to what we've been seeing. So defending in a 5-2-3. I often will say we defended in this shape, attacked in this shape. I never saw a different shape because we never really got into an attacking shape, but I think it was similar where those wingbacks will become attackers. And then you have Torres and Uzuni able to float. Vasquez is up top. He can float a little bit as well. And then 2 holding midfielders. And then when we get into the attacking shape, the 3 center backs behind those midfielders, one of them being Biru. He has a little bit of freedom to move as well. But like 5-2-3 into 3-2-2-3, 3-2-5, however you want to shape it. We rarely got into that attacking shape, but in the defensive part of it, I feel like this is where a lot of our issues were. Colorado played through and around us just far too easily, over and over and over. We were defending with a flat back 5, so Gallagher and Rosales on their weak-footed sides were defending in a flat back 5, but they were not using those numbers to follow players into the midfield. So a lot of times what you'll do is, because you have that extra cover with 5 players back there instead of 4, you can use your wide center backs to follow their tins into the pocket and put pressure there. They weren't doing it regularly or were slow to do it. And so we had 2 midfielders and 3 players pressing. All they had to do is drop 1 extra player in, and they could play around one of the pressing players, and then they were relying on Savovich and Owen to run side to side and cover all this space, and they weren't quick enough to do it, and also just they were outnumbered most of the time. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with the shape, but how we were playing in that shape, we could have been a bit more aggressive following some of those players so that they didn't so easily overload our midfielders. Like, defending is a team sport. We had those front 3 guys, Facu, Vasquez, Uzuni, were running like crazy. They ran so much, but most of it was pointless because it was not a structured, unified press. And so they would run so much, get played around, and we'd be split wide open. And all of that work was for nothing, essentially. On one of the few attacks that didn't end with Munungu, their left winger, roasting Rosales and then them getting a corner. I feel like, I don't know if you have the numbers, but I feel like they had 100 corners in the first half.
I know they had 5 in the first 13 minutes, and I don't remember exactly how it turned out ultimately, but yes, it was not great.
One of the few times that didn't happen, we would try to counter, but oftentimes it was like 2 or 3 people, and we'd lose the ball, or we'd have someone, this is more in the second half, but we did kind of look a little bit more cohesive in the second half, and we'd get on some counters, have Rosales or Pojeta or somebody running up that right side, and you could tell it like pained them to take a big touch with their right foot and keep running towards the inline. They wanted so bad to get back inside. When what that moment needs is stretching the field. Like, there's only 2 or 3 of you. You have to just go, like, break it open, give some people time to get in there behind you, and you can cut it back into the box. They would not do it. They did not want to do it. And then some of the few times they did, I think Pajetta especially did this a few times later on. He would get in and get onto his right foot and did not look comfortable playing the ball with his right foot there. And so it was all very, very frustrating.
Yeah, the first half, it is 8-0. This is on FOTMob, 8-0 corners in favor of Colorado. And just what is the other one? Accurate passes, 247 to 77. I mean, everything in the first half was very, very, I guess, burgundy. Is that the Colorado's official color? But whatever that is on the map. And then Austin got a little bit better the second half, but the first half was just like you said. There's no idea to know what Austin's offensive shape was because they never got in it.
Yeah, the second half, we did start sending center backs into the midfield, putting pressure on those midfielders of theirs playing in the pocket. That helped some. As they played backwards, we had a bit more of a unified press and were able to force them back into their own half and then play a long ball out or something a few times. It still wasn't super consistent, but compared to the first half, it was progress. And I think Ilie helped with some of that as well. Just, he's so smart. You could see Colorado would shift the ball and he would slide one direction and he'd turn and look over his shoulder to the other midfielder and like instruct them on what to do next. Like, you need to close off this angle as I move this way. And I would imagine Savovich and Owen weren't responding that quickly, not thinking one step ahead that way, which probably is part of it. So having Ilie and then having a bit more, like probably some halftime discussion to say like, hey, center backs, you can help out here, you can do this, made life easier on the midfielders, but then having Ilie's brain in the game probably helps some as well.
Yeah, so Ilie comes in at 64 along with Irvin Torres. So at that one, we get the Irvin for Facundo, Torres for Torres swap, which we've seen a couple times. Yeah, and then Ilie for Owen Wolf. I think right before that, we get like sort of the best Austin chance of the game, the Brandon Vasquez header. Like, how did you feel about how that play developed? And maybe, what do you think we should have seen from him on that?
Yeah, I mean, Gallagher does get, I think, does he play this cross with his left foot or does he cut in on his right for this one?
I thought it was from his right foot.
I can't remember.
For sure.
He played a couple with his left as well, but we do kind of what we're hoping to do and get a cross in. And there, I think is the keeper coming out. I think the keeper comes out to punch it.
He does. Yeah, he comes out to punch it, and so there's a pretty open goal, and the question becomes, where's Brandon Vasquez? What should be expected out of him in the moment? Because like the any good shot on frame is probably going to end up in the back of the net. It just becomes like, was that a real opportunity for him, or did he just kind of whiff on it?
It was a real opportunity. I think he thought the keeper was going to get a touch on it. And so I think he is half thinking, okay, I need to retreat and go try to win this second ball after the keeper touches it. The keeper does not touch it. And then he has to react in that split second to try to put it back on frame. I understand why he missed it. And it's the same reason why a lot of players would have missed it. But in that moment, like, this is me, hindsight 2020, but in that moment, like, okay, but what if he doesn't touch it? I think that's what he needs to be thinking there and get ready for, like, if it goes through, I need to be ready for a shot. If he does touch it, I can respond then, but let's be ready for what's happening now and then react to what happens after that. And he's thinking like, okay, I need to retreat here. And then it comes to him and it catches him off guard and he plays it wide when, the goal's wide open. If he gets any decent contact on it, it's going in.
Were there any other moments you want to talk about before we get to the Colorado goal, or even just like themes in play in the second half? Because we haven't talked a lot about how they played in the second half, other than the way they played when Ilie came in. So is there other things you want to talk about?
No,
now?
I think
Okay.
I covered most of what I wanted to say, so we can get to that goal. We get past the 90-minute mark. It's like the first time of the game where I start feeling a little bit of hope. Not that, oh, Austin's doing well, they deserve to be here. It's like, oh, please God, let this end, and it looks like it might soon.
Yeah, and like as a 0-0 draw, right? Because nobody ever was really thinking that this is going to end with an Austin victory. I don't think.
Yeah, and
after the Vasquez chance.
Yeah, so Ball gets, I don't remember what the even lead up to, but ball's in the box. Pajeta's running onto it, trying to clear it. Does not see the Colorado player coming into his line of vision. Lines up to clear the ball and kicks the Colorado player as it comes through. It's like unfortunate. Like it wasn't a terrible mistake. He should have been a bit more aware and to know that that player's there, and maybe he could just run through it and take a touch and then clear it. It is a penalty. I think you have to give it because like it was Colorado's ball to win, and then he tries to clear it and just kicks the crap out of this guy. So I think you have to give it. It wasn't a dangerous moment. Like it didn't matter because the player was running away from the goal. Like the Colorado player's touch would have taken him like to the corner flag essentially. And so that part's frustrating, but it's just like we deserved to lose, but we had that like the 2 minutes of hope of like, okay, maybe we'll somehow get a point out of this, and then to have this like stupid penalty happen and to lose it at the last moment was just like a major gut punch when I had no hope for most of the game anyway, and then had this small glimmer just to have it taken away immediately.
Right. Once it gets to 90, you're like, oh, we might get out of here. And then, but I totally agree with you on the take as far as like I think it was off a Stuver save that bounced out. But
Okay.
yeah, it's one of those, like it wasn't malicious, but under every interpretation of the rule, like you have to call that.
Yeah, you have to call it.
You have to call it. And then there was one more shot. I actually didn't even see it when I watched it live. This was the only chance after the goal because I was in every group chat I'm in, like swearing about how terrible we were and how I wanted to kill myself in that moment on the evening. But like it was a pretty decent chance. It's one of the top 2 chances on the night.
It was like in a good spot. It was tough to finish because of the traffic and what was going on. But given the spot on the field, there was a moment where it was like, oh, maybe we could tie it up. But yeah, it didn't happen.
Didn't happen. So this one ends. Austin loses 1-0. Austin still the only team in Major League Soccer without a road victory on the year.
Insane.
That covers the numbers. Let's talk about some player stuff maybe that we liked or didn't like or what we learned. I mean, I would say I'm getting worried about Owen Wolf. I think it's my number 1 player takeaway. And
yeah.
I think it's a combination of where he's playing and how he's playing. Both.
The thing about where he's playing, though, is so frustrating because this is like whenever people would complain about, oh, he's playing in the wrong position, they need to stick him in one position and let him get good there. This is the position that we thought it was going to be. And it's maybe not the exact iteration of that position, but like in central midfield, I think is where like his ceiling is highest. To his defense, like he hasn't played there. And so there's probably a learning curve there because he really hasn't played there for Austin FC all that much, not in this kind of role like that double pivot, where I think when he did play in that role, it was with more of a true 6 behind him and he was part of like 2 8s in front of that. But I can't think of any time in Austin FC where he has consistently or for like a long stretch of time played as a double pivot, like in a more defensive role like that. But he has looked pretty much invisible in these games where he's played there, which is very, very concerning. He's one of our best players, one of our most talented players. I understand he's coming back from injury, but we know what his potential is. And in a game where like, okay, we can't play out, we can't get out of their press. Like he's one of the guys who kind of needs to be a focal point of that. And he was not all to his own fault. Like I think it was systematically, like support wise, he needed more from his teammates and from what they were doing overall strategically. But he did not look like the guy who was going to pull us out of that hole.
Yeah, he did not. And I think the other thing I would add then too, because you talked about him being one of our best players, most important players, is Brandon Vasquez and Facu Torres. I feel like we're kind of in the same boat. For me, Brandon with coming back from injury, but like Facu, I don't know if he just hasn't found his place, or he doesn't have enough support around him, but he has not been a huge factor, especially over the last few weeks either.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is similar things we've talked about before, that he's not the kind of attacking midfielder that's going to break games open with creativity. Like he needs a little bit of assistance on that, if not having someone else to do it entirely. And when we're not even getting into that part of the field, and it's just like, okay, long ball to him, do something with it, with the only options like Brandon Vasquez making a run in behind and then 4 defenders running at you. He's in a tough place, and he's also like not the player who's going to be best suited to make something out of that moment. So I still, this goes back to what we talked about with Brandon Vasquez at the beginning of 2025. It's like, I believe this player is good. He's getting 1 shot per game and missing it. What happened in this one? He got 1 good chance and he missed it. He needs volume, and we're not getting it to him. He needs to build his confidence, and we're not helping him do that. And so I believe that if we could, with the system, with maybe an additional player, provide more service to both of those guys, they would start looking better. But that guy's not on the team right now. I don't know if that guy's coming. So this might be what we're stuck with.
Yeah, maybe I'll be wrong because I feel like I've said I don't know that anybody else is coming in right before we sign Factor Torres, but like I would not pin my hopes on that person coming in during this summer transfer window, and I feel like there's a pretty good chance that who we have is who we have.
You want to talk about a few positives?
Sure, let's do that.
I'll say Irvin Torres came on and brought one of the few sparks to the game. He came on, had some energy, had some creativity, like was doing a thing that nobody else did on the field for the rest of the night. I thought that was positive. Great to see him continuing to be the first guy off the bench to come in. And to the point where I would be pretty happy to see him get a start sometime in the next month with so many games coming up. Like, I think he's earned it with the way he's played in these games. It wouldn't just be a speculation start. It would be like, hey, who's looked best for us while they've been on the field over the last few games? Irvin Torres is on that list right now.
I wouldn't argue with that, especially given his time. And he got a little bit more time, right? I'm thinking this is the most action in a single game he's seen. He comes on at like 64, so he gets probably 35 minutes by the time it's all over. Yeah, definitely look good. Definitely looks like he belongs. Definitely looks like he can contribute. So maybe we will get more from him going forward.
This is a lesser highlight, but I thought Mateja Hot Dog Djordjevic looked okay. Again, the whole back line was hung out to dry by themselves at times, but just the structure kind of let them down and put them under a ton of pressure with letting Colorado get into those areas so often. I thought our like last ditch defending was okay, and I thought Djordjevic, again, like we saw that one Open Cup performance where he was kind of asked to do a weird thing where he didn't look good. He hasn't really been on the field a ton other than that. And so I thought this was the overall game, not something to carry with him, but I think his individual performance could be something to give him a little bit of confidence.
Yeah, maybe we see more contribution of him going forward, because it seemed like a month ago, or not a month ago, but before the All-Star, before the World Cup break, that it was like he just wasn't getting selected. He wasn't necessarily even getting in the team, and so maybe we get more from him going forward. This is the kind of thing that you would love to see from this club for the rest of the year. This is a young guy. We're not playing for a whole lot. Maybe we'll squeak in the playoffs somehow and get hot. Maybe not, but like let's see what we have in terms of players like him and Irvin and even Owen, and others, to see where the potential future, at least rotational pieces for this club are when they're hopefully going to be better.
Yeah, and with Djordjevic specifically, there was some, I think, Verde Nation reporting that Austin FC was looking to offload him.
That's right. Yep.
We'll get into the Dubersarsky stuff here in a little bit, but it wouldn't be shocking to see that happen, right? With the stuff that's been going on outgoing player-wise and the actual occurrences and just reported things, that it wouldn't be shocking to see them try to move on from him. So maybe this is them saying like, hey, let's pump the brakes. Let's see what we have. And maybe we want to keep him. Or it could be put him in the shop window. This guy's an important player. You need to pay us for him.
Yep, absolutely.
I think the last thing on this game is what we learned. And I think what we learned is Davy is sticking to the plan. He continued saying that. He said it midweek last week. He said it after this game that we're going to keep doing this. We're going to try to keep getting better. He kept calling progress like over the last few games and included the Houston game in what he's calling progress. And so I imagine a lot of fans scoffed at that. I think there were like the Houston game overall, I think was a better Austin FC game than this Colorado one. We said it earlier, like there were a few positives to look at in that game and say like, hey, we did this thing kind of well for a little bit in this part of the game. But it seems like Davy's going to keep going with it. Again, I don't mind the general shape, the general instructions that he's giving to the players, but the inverted winger thing, man, it's it's going to kill me.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially when you're not creating chances from it, right? You've got guys like running backwards on the wrong side and, not playing their strengths. So, okay, let's take another break and then we'll cover some news and preview Leagues Cup.
All right, hang tight. We'll be right back.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Grit and Guile Brewing Company, the city of Kyle's first ever brewery, opening downtown next year, home to a craft brewery and coffee roastery under one roof. And I went to the city of Kyle this week to watch the Odyssey in IMAX because it was the closest IMAX theater that had tickets available. And my observation of Kyle is that theater is great and they could definitely use something like Grit and Guile Brewing Company to give people more reasons to go visit Kyle. Construction on their brick and mortar store starts soon, but our friends at Grit and Guile are already roasting their single origin coffee that they will ship straight to your door.
And I heard you and Mike talking about the coffee. I do still have your coffee here at the house.
Okay,
because
cool.
This is how irregularly you and I see each other in person, is that I don't think I've seen you in person since I got that. So I'll get it to you soon. I have had it. Mike has had it. I really liked the one I got. Mike said he really liked the one he got, so definitely try out the coffee. You can order that now at gritandguilebrewing.com. That's Grit and Guile, Gyle, brewing.com to learn more and sign up for their first pour coffee subscription. Grit and Guile, your daily rituals deserve to be remarkable.
Moon Tower Soccer is also brought to you by Sage Wilson Realty. This is another travel tip, but I was driving around the neighborhood, saw a lot of Sage Wilson signs with houses for sale. Feel like people who are maybe looking for a spot in Anderson Mill want to send their kids to Westwood. Talk to Eric Wilson at Sage Wilson Realty, and you're probably going to get yourself a good deal and not get caught offside in this market.
The right strategy can turn today's opportunity into your winning goal. If you're looking for Sage real estate advice in Austin, contact our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com. All right, we will shortly get to our Leagues Cup preview, but first, let's cover some Austin FC news. A few kind of big ones here.
Yeah, the first one here is that on Thursday, Austin FC announced that the club agreed to loan midfielder Nico Dubersarsky to club Atletico Tigre from the Argentine Primera Division through June 2027, which frees up U22 slot, a roster slot. Tigre will have a purchase option at the conclusion of the loan period. If they do that, Austin FC would retain a sell-on percentage of future transfers. Mike and I talked a little bit about our feelings on this one last week. I'm interested in like what you might want to add to what we talked about.
I think it's disappointing that he didn't turn into what we hoped he would here, but also I didn't see him turning into what we hoped he would here. And so with Curtin coming in, we talked about like that system, if that's what he's going to do, and we don't know yet. But if we're looking at that 4-4-2 diamond, that's Jose Martinez role, where he was an absolute beast in that midfield. Dubersarsky, I think, has athleticism to be able to do the ground covering. I think he could get really good at the ball winning part of that. I've not seen enough from him to say that he could do the ball progression part like Jose Martinez was, because that was the other side of that coin. Martinez was also quite good at that part of the game. Dubersarsky's not there yet. And so it seems like they're clearing space. They're trying to open up roster spots so that when Curtin is here, they can start bringing in more Curtin guys that are going to fit the way that he wants to play. I think this is just another step there. And anybody who they can get off the roster and open up space for, I imagine they're going to try to do that with a lot of guys. And this is just one of the young guys who still has some stock, especially in Argentina. He had a really good season in Argentina before coming here. I think it was his old coach maybe is the coach at Tigre now, and maybe specifically requested for him to get there. So it could work out well for everybody where, okay, we free up the spot. We are able to later bring in a player who fits the system better. But if he goes there and does well and they buy him, it means, okay, we could maybe recoup the investment we put in on him.
Which is probably the best possible outcome for Austin at this point for him. And then on Friday, we got the news that I think a lot of people who are fans who have watched the second team play wanted to have, and this is that Jorge Alastuey signed a first-team contract through the end of 2026. So to your point about Curtin wanted to maintain some flexibility, there are options for 2027 sprint and 2027, 2028 full, but this feels very much like we got to get a dude who can play some games and eat some minutes on this first team this year, and then we'll kind of see where we go from there. He will occupy a supplemental slot, and then he takes the international designation that Austin picked up after Dubersarsky went out.
Right. So, yeah, I read a couple of things into this. One of them being that, so we do still have one more international roster slot. So maybe that would be used for bringing in a new player or something, or they're going to leave the option open at least. So the one thing I read is that maybe there's not a market for selling 2 international roster slots. And it's like, okay, we're just going to sit on this one anyway. Let's go ahead and use it on Alastuey. We're not wasting it then. Like if we can't sell it, we're not going to use it on anybody else. That's the only reason you wouldn't bring Alastuey up, right? Is that international roster slot. So if you just have a spare one laying around that you can't do anything with, sure, let's do it. That makes sense to me. The more like depressing take I have from this is that they not only they don't think they can sell it, but they also don't believe or don't want to fill it with anything else right now. And so I think this is a sign that we're all the hopium part of this is like, okay, maybe we'll get a sporting director in the next week or so, and then the window's still open for a few more weeks and we can maybe make some signings. I think this is a little bit of an admission of like, we're not making any more signings, so we don't need
nothing
this
big's
spot.
happening.
We can just give it to him.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of dark. Well, and I guess the other part of that is too, it's not necessarily a like for like swap because I think Alastuey's best position on the field is playing that defensive midfield role that Nico Dubersarsky best serves too. So then he becomes a guy that's competing for minutes with our boy Irvin Torres in some way.
Yeah, exactly. Irvin Torres came onto the field and played where Facu Torres was playing in this game the other night. And I think when he came off the bench a couple of weeks ago, that's what he did as well, was playing not as the central midfield, but as one of those attacking midfielders, like wide and floating around. That is exactly where Alastuey would play in this system. Is I think the one game he did play, that's exactly what he did, is he played that Facu Torres role. So yeah, it is definitely not like for like with Dubersarsky. And I would just remind listeners, just like any minute Alastuey gets is potentially minutes that Irvin Torres is not getting.
I think that's a very good summary of it. Let's go to, this is not on the field, but Ryan Madden, head of marketing, PR, comms, whatever, at Austin FC, announced on his Instagram that he's now the Executive Associate Athletic Director and Chief Brand and Revenue Officer at, I didn't write this down, Wake Forest. Okay, yeah, there you go. I had Georgia Tech in my head suddenly for some reason, but yes, at Wake Forest. Good for Ryan. I think that's all we need to say about that. And it seems like Austin's done a good job of creating front office staff who go on to other places because the person in the job before ended up going to the NFL. James Ruth was in the NFL and then now in the NBA. So we're crushing it on the behind the scenes part of this operation.
Comms department is the real academy that Austin FC is running here. It is like it. Given all the club's struggles in various departments, I think marketing is one, for better or for worse. I think there's some people who would mock that about Austin FC, like marketing FC or whatever. I think it's one of the fields where they've been quite good over most of their existence. And so it is a loss whenever someone who's like in charge of that. So I'm hoping whoever the replacement is can kind of carry the torch that James carried and then Ryan carried of like making our club like look cool to the world and like helping us feel cool about our club, because I think they've done that.
I think they have. Yeah, well, let's go to this is news today. This is league news, not Austin FC news specifically, but Larry Berg was selected as Major League Soccer's next commissioner.
Larry
Following
Bird?
vote on Monday. Larry Bird, yes. Tying back to the thing you said before about like Larry Bird's not walking back through this door. The fabulous Rick Pitino quote with your take on the summer. Yeah, Larry Berg, co-managing owner of LAFC and co-chair of Major League Soccer's Sporting and Competition Committee, was selected via this search. So Don Garber's been in the job for 30 years or close to it, if not. So selected to follow Don Garber will assume the role of commissioner on January 1, 2027, following a long time with Don Garber as the commish.
Yeah, so I didn't really know anything about this guy before, but reading what the folks at The Athletic and like Soccer-Wise, like real journalists who do know this stuff and know who to ask about this stuff, the things that they have said about him, I feel pretty encouraged by this, where Don Garber is the old hand who I think deserves a ton of credit for where the league has gotten over the span of its existence, but I think it's also time to move forward. And it feels like Larry Berg is the kind of person where he has the institutional knowledge. He knows everybody. He knows the successes and failures of MLS, but also is coming from a very ambitious team in LAFC, which he will need to, he'll be forced to divest his ownership in LAFC. So he's not going to be playing favorites, at least not openly in that regard. But I think the other finalist was like a Fox executive or something, which made me less excited. Like I wanted somebody who's like a bit more inside, because MLS is a unique animal. And I think someone who doesn't know it intimately might struggle to know how to fix it as well. So given like this guy just being a guy who wants to push the league, who has been that voice in the room already, to let him then be the guy in charge. And I think you have to remember that the commissioner is not a dictator in MLS. Like, he still has to work with the owners. The owners are the real bosses. But it didn't seem like Garber was ever going to put his thumb on the scale for progress in the way that it seems like Berg might, to whatever degree he can. He's still going to be beholden to these owners as a whole. But I think it's encouraging.
Yeah, I do too. Do you want to talk about Leagues Cup now?
One other thing, there's proposed salary rules. We don't know the
we'll find out about it at some point, right?
It seems like we might find out soon that MLS owners are voting on rules maybe today or sometime this week that could really break open the freedom of spending that teams are going to have, where, okay, you can spend as much money as you want overall, but it has to be used on these DPs. The word on the street is, from, again, these real journalists doing this work, is that it's going to open it up and they're going to have a lot more flexibility. So that's really exciting. I'm sure we'll have more news on that in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that and sort of what it means and what it might mean for Austin, what it might mean for the growth in the league. It's a thing that's, I feel like, long overdue, but it's positive that's coming now, or coming now-ish. There's also a CBA that has to be renegotiated before it gets done. But I can't imagine if you tell the players, like, we're going to collectively pay you more money, they're going to have a problem with that, how they're proposing.
For sure.
Okay, let's talk about Leagues Cup. So I'm going to set up what it is, basically, as a reminder. Then we'll go into, you've done some scouting on the Austin FC's opponents, so we can talk about who they are. So it's a competition between 18 Liga MX teams and 18 MLS teams, which are the top 9 from the East-West in 2025, and then all 18 Liga MX teams. In Phase 1, everybody plays 3 matches against the other league. This is what's going to be coming up over the next 2 weeks here in Austin. No draws. Next pro rules for how you have an outcome. And then, Liga MX table and MLS table top 4 team. Explain this one to me. This is very convoluted to me. Yeah.
Not everyone's playing everyone, right? So everyone's going to play 3 games. At the end of those 3 games, there will be a table for the Liga MX teams and a table for the MLS teams of how many points they've accumulated over the span of those 3 games. The top 4 in each side will then move on to the knockout round.
Okay.
That knockout round is then a seeded bracket, and it is still Liga MX versus MLS in those first rounds of the knockout round. After that, you can't control it anymore because
Right.
it's whoever wins advances. And so, but I think that is a change they made starting last year, I believe, was
That sounds right.
you don't get two MLS teams playing midweek in a game that nobody cares about. Like, the part that is cool about this tournament is getting to play teams from the other leagues. And so they said, hey, let's make it just that. And so this table system is weird. It's not very fair, but it is leaning into the most exciting part of the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to, and there are regions somehow.
I don't, yeah, it's one of these things where MLS like doesn't explain how or why they ranked people and put them into various regions. And so I'm not going to take that as my job to explain it if the league who's running it doesn't care about explaining it. So there are rankings. That's how they ranked and put teams into these things. There are regions, and so teams aren't going to have to travel a ton. And then also there's going to be 4 games in Mexico. The top 4 ranked teams are hosting only one game in Mexico. The rest of them will be in the U.S. So still not entirely fair, but a step closer, and will be cool to, again, like, that is the most exciting part of like CONCACAF Champions Cup and adding that into this tournament. The winners do get pretty substantial prize money, and then CONCACAF Champions Cup spots will go to the 2 finalists and the winner of the 3rd place game. So there is some stakes here. I think doing that makes the teams and the players care about it as well. If they can make a little extra money, they get to play in another competition. That is motivation to care about this.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's go to who Austin's going to play. And we're going to start with, I guess we'll just do it in order, right? So in order of when Austin's playing. So this first match, this is Thursday, August 6th, 8 o'clock in Austin. Club Tijuana, located right across the border from San Diego. So tell us a little more about them.
Yeah, so with each of these teams, we're going to do a few categories. So the first being, what is their place in Liga MX? And I mean that in the grander scheme of things. Like, where do they sit in the recent history of this league? And so Tijuana is mid-table club pretty consistently. Sometimes they'll do a little worse. Sometimes they'll punch above their weight and do a little bit better. But generally speaking, they're kind of mid-table.
Last season in the 2025 Apertura, they won to play in to make the playoffs. 2026 Clausura, just missed it. This season, this is Apertura in 2026. They started off strong. They're sitting in 2nd place. So team in pretty good form. Why don't you cover the players to watch?
Yeah, the main one for them is Gilberto Mora. If you watched Mexico play in the World Cup, you would have seen him. He's 17-year-old phenom. Started 3 games and came on as a sub in the other games for Mexico in the World Cup. Super skillful, super creative midfielder. I know Austin FC is allergic to teenagers, but this is a teenager that anybody can and should be afraid of. He is going to be a superstar. This guy he's going to play for some of the biggest teams in the world if he continues his trajectory. And I think this is me and Mike talked about it a couple weeks ago. I'm excited about that. It's like to get to see this kid play in person before he becomes that and say like, hey, I was there back then. I think another thing to mention is they lost their best player from last season, Kevin Castañeda. He was sold to Chivas. I think Gil Mora is kind of expected to fill those shoes a little bit on this team. And then just an interesting note, the striker has been split time between 2 players, one of them being a Moroccan player, Murad El Ghazouani, the other one being Diego Abreu, who is the coach's son, which I just thought was interesting to just in an Austin FC context to mention.
Diego /Owen Abreu.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, and then you've also for each, I'm going to guess it's for each of these, you have like a couple fun facts about the clubs.
Yes, so the nickname of Tijuana is the Cholos. I think a lot of people have heard that. It is named after the Xoloitzcuintle dog, which is those like hairless dogs that are common in Mexico. The logo features one of these Cholo dogs, and the actual dog was modeled after the founder's father's pet Cholo, who was named Hermoso. Another fun fact is they were founded in 2007, played in the 2nd division for a while, got promoted to Liga MX in 2011, and just a year and a half later after getting promoted, won a title, and Austin FC legend Joe Corona was on that team.
Oh, wow. Yeah. The amazing Joe Corona. And this is a team that will never be, just like every other team, never be demoted again or relegated again now that Liga MX has gone the way of MLS and
That's right.
stopped doing promotion and relegation. All right. Well, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to these matches, or these first two at least. Always good to see different players. It's always fun to see Liga MX. It's always fun to see the different vibe in the stadium, right? You know, from just a random, we're playing Seattle with 27 people who are Seattle fans in the audience on a Wednesday night. You know, it's just a different environment, which I definitely enjoy.
Yeah, and I think as far as like the fans it attracts, I think Club America, we'll talk about that one next week because that's not until the following Thursday. Austin FC might be as close to an away team as it's ever been in its own stadium on that night. I don't know that will happen with Tijuana. I'm sure there will be some interest at the very least just to come see Gil Mora play. But this next team, let's talk about the other team, which is on Sunday night.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. And this is the one I'm guessing is the potential place you might want to go for your next vacation because you teased that in the open. Is it Puebla?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Puebla looks like a lovely little city just outside Mexico City. And I think might be a bit more interesting than San Luis.
You think so? Yeah. So I think you wrote this here too. Typically kind of a bottom feeder. It's a big deal if you make the playoffs. It's been true in recent seasons. Last year they finished dead last in the 2025 Apertura, next to last in the Clausura. Did make it to the knockouts in the Leagues Cup, which feels a little bit like the, 2 years ago, Austin team that was doing really poorly, but managed to like sneak up and beat some really good clubs in the Leagues Cup. And this year they're 1-1-1. So maybe they're turning it around to be average.
Yeah, on the players to watch section here, I really struggled. They have a winger named Emiliano Gomez, who's a Uruguayan attacker. He didn't have much output last year. I'm sure someone is supposed to be their best player, but based on stats and Liga MX results, like I'm not that familiar with this team. I'm not that familiar with these players. I don't know who their best players are supposed to be, but who it actually was nobody because they were pretty bad over the last little stretch. And they've also had a lot of turnover over the last couple of seasons. Like they were bad. They sent off a bunch of players, brought in a bunch of players, were bad again, and then did it again and have a new coach, a bunch of new players coming in. So I don't really know what they're going to look like. I don't know who their good players are going to be. I don't know who they're going to be relying on. So this one's a bit more of a mystery box. Not saying that Austin FC should take them lightly for that reason, because we've seen in this tournament and others that Austin FC should take nobody lightly.
Absolutely.
But I just don't really know what to expect from them.
Well, let's add your fun facts about Puebla.
So Puebla is located near a very large active volcano. I think it's the second tallest mountain in Mexico, but is also home to Quexcomate, which is widely considered the smallest volcano in the world at just 43 feet tall. Other fun fact is that Alonso Ramirez, a former Austin FC 2 player,
that guy,
recently joined Puebla and has played in 2 of their 3 games this season. So we might get to see him again too.
And then the other thing we got a couple days ago was or maybe it was today, actually. Yeah, it was today, the Austin FC Leagues Cup roster, but it's everybody. It's everybody who has played. Everybody might have played. A bunch of Austin FC 2 guys. Nico Dubersarsky. Like, I don't know that we need to read a whole lot into the roster itself.
Reactions about it today saying like, oh, John Bell and Mikel Dessler are on there. It's like, I think they had to submit these.
It was in July.
Weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
They put everyone on there. I think there's maybe, and then also like some youngsters on the second team who have looked quite good that aren't on there, that maybe they're like, oh, well, they weren't doing that well yet, so we didn't put them on. But it is a ton of second team players. And like you said, Dubersarsky's on there. These other 2, Bell and Dessler, maybe they're not healthy and they don't play. But Phil West said in his article about this that he got it confirmed from the club that they are allowed to make some changes up to a few days before the tournament starts.
Three changes up to a few days before the tournament starts. Yeah.
So I would expect to see some of those, if at the very least for the Dubersarsky spot, to fill that with a player who is still in the country. If not for some of these injuries, if they continue into the tournament.
Do we have anything else to talk about? Or are you ready to close it out?
I think we can go ahead and wrap it up. We'd like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Come find us on Instagram. We'll be back next week to review these first two Leagues Cup games, and then we'll preview the third Leagues Cup game against Club America. And then, if I'm not mistaken, Copa Tejas game against FC Dallas. Is that the one after that?
That's the one after that. Yep.
All right, and we'll cover any other Austin FC news that comes up. Until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Think for nothings you never.
La gente.
Oh my God.
Because they love cheap boom boom sauce.
Yeah.